Welcome to another one-on-one sports webcast. I am Christian Binder, and I'm joined by the red-headed wonder himself, Andy Harris. We're going to talk about baseball today, but not in the way you're used to. We're going to talk about some fantasy baseball. Andy, let's just get right into it. Let's go position by position with the top-tier players, starting at first base.
Do you even have to say it? It's Albert Pujols at first base.
Absolutely.
Not even close. There are many good first basemen. I'm a big fan of Miguel Cabrera. I think he's a legitimate MVP candidate this year in real life, and he's a guy who can anchor your team. Ryan Howard, Mark Teixeira, Prince Fielder, all very good options as well. Second base, call me a homer. Shea Sutley. I'm sorry, there's no second baseman nearly as good.
Well, homerism for me too. Robinson Cano, very good offensive player. This is a guy that they've been saying for years can contend for a batting title, and he's looking like he can hit for average as well as power. And when you're playing in Yankee Stadium,
you can definitely
left-handed
hit for power,
batters can hit for power.
Absolutely.
Now going at shortstop's a little bit thin this year, except for guys like maybe Derek Jeter will put up some really good numbers for you. Jimmy Rollins looks like he's having a good year. Some more homerisms for us. But
Hanley's still the best. Hanley Ramirez down in Florida. He's easily the best shortstop. Big Troy Tulowitzki fan, too. That guy, he's one of the few shortstops who can legitimately blast 30 home runs and steal 20 bases.
Yeah, and we forgot to mention second base Dan Uggla is a guy who can give you a lot of power.
Absolutely.
For a really cheap cost. I mean, I've seen him drop really low into drafts this year.
Yeah, he's fallen far because of the average, but if you need power late, Dan Uggla's an option.
Third base, clearly the top two, Alex Rodriguez and Evan Longoria.
David Wright has a chance to bounce back. If he can find that home run stroke again, he's a third baseman who can hit 320 with 30 bombs and a ton of RBIs, plus steals. Don't forget about the steals. He can steal 30 bases as well.
Steals are really important, especially in rotisserie leagues, where those count for a lot of points. If you can get a lot of steals and steal that category early in the season, you'll really run away with it. So then we go outfield. Now, outfield I've found has been really deep this year.
It has. It really has. Ryan Braun and Matt Kemp are the only two guys I put in that top tier. They have the best blends of power, speed, and average. They can both blast 30 home runs, steal 30 bases, and hit 300. There's not many guys who can do that. Yeah,
but I've also got Andre Ethier, also from the Dodgers, is a guy who was just absolutely clutch in real life, but really clutch for fantasy teams as well. Then you've got Ichiro, of course, who will bat 300 and get 200 hits for you every year.
Yeah.
He won't hit a ton of home runs, but he's also good for speed.
He's still solid, yeah.
I mean, outfield really deep. Not really necessary to take him as early as people do, up in the second and third rounds, because you can get somebody who's still going to be a productive outfielder late in a draft.
It's kind of like first base in that it's so deep, you can wait on it. You don't have to reach for one of the top-tier options because you can still get a very good player for that position in the fifth round.
Absolutely. Now, starting pitching is also extremely deep, but I personally reached early in the draft. After the first round, I took Tim Lincecum because this is a guy coming off of back-to-back Cy Young seasons.
He's
absolutely phenomenal.
Yes.
But I think the best pitcher right now has got to be Roy Halladay.
Moving to the NL definitely helps. He's got a legitimate chance to win 20 games, post ridiculous ERA and whips. Strikeouts are going to be good. I still think I take Lincecum followed by Zach Greinke just because their stuff is so electric.
Right.
But you're right. I'm a big Roy Halladay fan, obviously, again.
Yeah, Tim Lincecum is a guy I really like as a starting pitcher. I felt like I may have reached for him in the second round, but that was a case where I knew he wasn't going to make it back around to me, so I just had to take him then. But really, Tim Lincecum, Roy Halladay, Zach Greinke, top three pitchers hands down. Now, we forgot to mention catchers early on. So we got Brian McCann is definitely one of the top two.
I think it's Joe Mauer's by himself in the top, and then Brian McCann and Victor Martinez in Boston are the next two.
I think Victor Martinez you could easily wait on, and I mean, really catcher you can wait on, honestly, because
I always punt catcher.
That's a position that you can. It's not going to really kill. Or it's not really going to help your team unless you get somebody like Joe Mauer or Brian McCann, because Victor Martinez numbers you can get at any other position,
like in the
virtually
15th round. Yeah.
And Jorge Posada is another guy who, despite his defensive woes, but this is fantasy. We don't care.
We don't care about defense.
We don't care about defense and fantasy. Jorge Posada's offensive numbers are still good even at his upper age.
Absolutely, yeah, he's still very good.
So let's move on now to sleepers and busts. Your two sleepers to watch this year.
Colby Rasmus, my first one. He's the center fielder in St. Louis. He's a guy, he's still very young. He struggled last year, which means he's dropping in drafts this year. He can legitimately hit 25 homers and have 15 steals. He has very good speed, and most importantly, he's got a starting gig locked up.
Absolutely,
so I'm a big fan of him. I have him on multiple teams. Also a big fan of Ian Stewart out in Colorado. Has multiple position eligibility. He's at second base. I honestly think his number is going to be equivalent to that of Dan Uggla. He's got massive raw power, especially for a middle infielder.
Right.
Eligible at third as well. He plays in a very good lineup. He's going to get a lot of RBIs, and he's even got a little bit of speed. He can steal 10 bases.
Yeah.
So what about you?
I've got Kendry Morales, who hardly qualifies as a sleeper to me, but last year he bat 306 with 34 homers and 108 RBIs. Comparable numbers to Mark Teixeira, who bat 292 with 39 home runs and 122 RBIs. But this is a guy who's getting taken 15th round or later in a lot of drafts. I mean, that's just completely ridiculous.
I don't understand that. You're right.
So Kendry Morales, the first baseman for the Angels, is one. Steven Drew, the shortstop for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, I know he had a rough year last year, only 261 average. It's really, really poor. But 12 home runs, 65 RBIs. But he's only 1 year removed from a season he bat 291 with 21 homers and 67 RBIs.
And he did battle injuries last year as well. I mean,
right.
Think about Troy Tulowitzki 2 years ago, struggled with injuries, bounces back last year to have a very good season. Can't judge a player when they're injured.
Absolutely. And Steven Drew this year started out with an inside-the-park home run. So
clearly
he's on his way back.
Yeah,
clearly.
he's on his way.
Your busts for this year.
I hate to say it about your Yankees, Javier Vasquez. He's not going to be bad. I don't want to say that. But he's being drafted as one of the top-tier starting pitchers, I feel like. He's going typically in the top 10 of starting pitchers. Moving to the AL, especially moving to Yankee Stadium, I do not see him posting the ERA far below 3. Yeah, absolutely not below 3. Yeah. I think he's going to be a lot closer to 4 than to 3.
Absolutely. I mean, it's always easier for a pitcher to go from the AL to the NL because you're losing that DH.
Absolutely.
You're basically facing 8 batters in the NL.
Yeah.
This is why Roy Halladay's going to have such a good year.
Exactly.
I agree with you. Javier Vasquez, he was a top-flight pitcher last year with the Braves, but he is not anything to be excited about this year.
Absolutely not.
Johnny Damon is my bust. He had a huge year last year, tied his career high with 24 home runs.
And that was a product of Yankee Stadium.
Absolutely. Now he's in Comerica Park, which is enormous. And for the sake of time, we got to move really fast. Your one rookie to watch this year.
Alcides Escobar in Milwaukee. He's a guy, he's Jose Reyes light. He's not going to hit for average, but he's got just as much speed as Reyes. And again, like I said with Rasmus, he's got a starting job locked up. He could swipe 40 to 50 bags if he can get on base enough. He can hit 272. It won't kill you in average. I think he's going far too late in drafts. He can be a guy who can really anchor your middle infield.
Yeah, I'm looking at Austin Jackson, the center fielder from Detroit, who they got from the Yankees. He's a guy. He's a rookie batting leadoff. He's got speed. He'll hit for average. He won't hit for as much power as they thought he would, but playing in Detroit, it's really hard to do that.
Absolutely.
But he's a guy who can really help your lineup in a bunch of ways. But unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Don't forget to check out our other webcast this week, in which we discuss the NHL and NBA playoffs. For Andy Harris, I'm Christian Binder, and whose side are you on?